So today we're talking about one of my favorite subject areas, which is probably not everyone's favorite, which are contracts and specifically NDAs. So what is an NDA? What does it stand for? Why are we talking about this? Does it matter? NDAs stand for non-disclosure agreements, where you are essentially agreeing not to share another party's confidential information. And so NDAs can have two ways. There is a one-way NDA where a partner, let's say Google, is asking you to sign an NDA where you are agreeing not to share Google's information. And then there are two-way NDAs or mutual NDAs, sometimes called MNDAs, where both sides are agreeing to essentially the same terms and are mutually agreeing not to share each other's information. So I'm personally a big fan of the second category, which is an MNDA, because you at least know that it's fair, because a lot of times the other party is probably not going to want to agree to terms if they feel like they are really taking advantage of or being very aggressive with the other party. Like, why would you also want that on yourself? So I really like that setup. So I think today I'm going to talk about NDAs specifically in the realm of the video game industry because that is where I come from and what I'm most familiar with. So I think a lot of times if you're an indie dev and you're working on a game, you're very protective and you want to be cautious around your IP or the game that you're developing because a lot of it is this is what you've been working on for years, learning it in and out. You have a lot invested in this, both in your time, effort, money. I know that one thing I learned when I started my own company and going through more of the tech startup route is that a lot of times startup founders would really be extra cautious with NDAs in the beginning. Say they're talking to investors, they're getting advice from mentors. And I feel like I learned over time that if you're really early or you're just saying something in passing, like a quick sentence, probably you don't need to sign an NDA. A lot of people have got their own things going on. They're working on their own games. They're thinking about something else. The odds of someone really sitting down based off of a couple sentences that you shared with them and totally changing what they're working on or what they're thinking about, I'd say the odds of that are super small. At least I haven't really ever heard of that happening, especially if you're talking to publishers or investors that see thousands of games every month. It's really inconsequential to them. I've signed a lot of NDAs and contracts on behalf of companies like Twitch or Amazon, or if I'm working with clients like Capcom or with indie studios and startups. Personally, I've gotten offended where someone might bring an NDA out a little bit too early. Let's say we're at GDC or Gamescom. This actually happened to me before, and someone was really well dressed, was like really, I think, excited for their game. And then we were just starting to have a little conversation at a picnic table, and they got out all this paperwork. We're like, okay, I need you to go through and sign these pages. And it was just a turnoff because it was like, oh man, I thought we were just talking about this as friends. I thought maybe there'd be some trust between us. But getting out the NDA on printout papers too fast, it gets your guard up. It gets the other party's guard up. Oh, okay, now I need to like put on my lawyer hat, think about this legally. Am I protected? It just moves you to a different mental state. I know that whenever that's happened to me, it's put me off and maybe discouraged me in that conversation. So I feel like you're really trying to get momentum going when things are early with your game or your company. And telling people ideas can kind of pressure test it. I've gotten tons of good feedback when I've asked really senior people or people with experience before me for certain ideas. And sometimes they'll be really blunt and ask me obvious questions that I hadn't thought about. And they realize, oh yeah, maybe that is something I should think about and put on the list of feedback to make about my idea. I know we're not exactly talking about the NDA contract. I think I'm just also wanted to address when is it the right time to share confidential, semi-confidential information, and when is it actually important to sign a contract? A lot of times in a business-to-business partnership, NDAs are one of the initial milestones to getting you to signing a deal with that company. So I would say they're generally a good sign or a good early indicator of you working together with this other party because they're willing to take the time to sign an NDA, which takes some effort on behalf of someone at the company. And it also means that they're going to be more likely to share confidential private ideas with you. Those could be new programs that they have. That could be things that maybe they feel like, oh, wow, this could really be a fit for something we're working on. And so that's an exciting time when you're just signing an NDA because that means that both parties are going to be sharing something fun afterwards that you probably aren't going to find in the press yet or on their website. There are many steps to signing an eventual deal with someone. I would say initially, after just getting an intro or meeting someone at a game show or over email, NDAs are one of the first official steps for that. And so within the actual NDA itself, there are certain clauses that you'll want to watch out for. And so I'm not officially a lawyer, and I don't provide this as legal advice, so just take that with a grain of salt. Although I have negotiated and signed hundreds of NDAs, whether those are with indies or with bigger companies. I'm just basing this on my own experience and advice and how I make decisions. Just a little disclaimer there. Within the NDA itself, you basically want to feel protected where both sides are agreeing to uphold each other's confidentiality. Plain and simple, that is what you're signing up for. You can make the terms more aggressive. Like, for example, you can add some sort of punishment if those disclosures are broken. I know I've received NDAs before where there were up to $1 million, or maybe it was $5 million in damages if the confidentiality is broken, especially when it was towards our party from a bigger company. And I negotiated to remove that from the contract because sometimes agreeing to a term like that might put you out of business. I'm not saying anyone is planning to share confidential information, but part of it is the contracts are used in a worst case scenario where if things have really gone south or the other party feels like you've really broken their trust or done something wrong, the lawyers will get involved. And usually the first step is the business folks, and not even the lawyers, will go and look at the contract to see what was previously agreed to as a fallback rule set that you want to check before taking any further action. So let's say, for example, and this doesn't just apply to NDAs, this is contracts, the rule of contracts in general. Let's say you both have agreed to this NDA, but you feel like the other party somehow has been sharing your idea far and wide, and you're noticing all these people talking about it on Reddit, and heard people talking about it at game conferences, and you're like, that's really weird, and I only shared it with these couple people. So if you can trace it back to someone, probably the first step that you'll do, right, is go back and look at what you signed and see specifically where is the other person breaking that contract, or you have a hunch that they might be. So that goes both ways, right? When you sign a mutual NDA, that's how parties go and look back and use contracts to check if you have or haven't broken someone's trust before. Just remember that when you're signing anything, you definitely want to be thorough and make sure you're only signing things that you're comfortable with. And if there are things that you're really not comfortable with in your gut, it's always worth a conversation. So I think one thing that people don't realize is a lot of contracts, even the early stage NDAs, are negotiable. You are free to ask the other party to make changes and provide reasoning for that. It's pretty easy to take that Word doc and make some changes with the other team's lawyer or the other team's business person. Sometimes if you're negotiating against an Amazon or a Google, they probably have to send out thousands of NDAs every month. So it might be harder to do, and you might get it in an automated format where it's just like provide your e-signature here, one click button. It's not a Word doc or a PDF that you can more easily edit. But just note that it is always an option to ask. And a lot of times, if you have good grounds, people will do that. And sometimes there can be clauses hidden, even in those early stage NDAs, that you don't want to click through, like in terms of service that I know we all click through when you're downloading a new game or a new app, especially when it's on behalf of your own company and you're looking to do business with this other party for potentially years. You want to at least give it a read through, check, and make sure you feel good about it. Not to say that NDAs have hidden gotchas all the time. I find it's pretty rare. Again, other than that, sometimes a monetary punishment and it'll name an amount. That's really the only thing I've seen recently that I was uncomfortable with signing some NDAs. I think the goal of this is between any two parties, your number one thing you're trying to do is build trust, become friends, have some sort of a working relationship, and ideally eventually a friendship where you can rely on each other and trust each other. And all good things can come from that, right? Because business is a long game, especially in the game industry. This is old news. Everyone knows a lot of people are here to make games because they love it, and they're going to keep doing it no matter how the trends go up and down. And so you never know, someone that you might be giving some advice on, helping them make an intro now, might be someone that hires you, or you want to hire them in the future, or you start something brand new together. I really think it's important just to be trustworthy and have that reputation in anything you do. And I think it also is just a nice way to live. So that is my take on NDAs. And so if you have had any different experience, any horror stories, any really positive experiences, or any thoughts on NDAs as a contract or as something that is useful to indie devs or to people in the game industry, we'd love to hear from you in the comments below. Thanks again for stopping by this channel. If you have any feedback for ideas you want to hear about business development, marketing, or about the video game industry in general, would love to hear from you. And we'll be posting a lot of new videos soon. So thanks for stopping by.